All right. On behalf of the admissions department here at Northwestern University, welcome to the Engineering and Design Tour. My name is Sawyer. I'll be your tour guide for today. I am a junior studying mechanical engineering with a concentration in manufacturing, and I'm also pursuing the design certificate to get even more experience. I'm originally from Harvard, Massachusetts, which is a little town outside of Boston, completely unrelated to the university. That confuses people all the time. And when I'm not walking backwards, giving tours to the office here, you can find me in this building here, Ford, as a student machine shop trainer, helping students with their projects, or working as a member of Northwestern's solar car team. If you want to follow me inside right now, we're going to check out the Ford Motor Company Engineering and Design Center. So this is really the heart of design at Northwestern. Anything you want to build or make, most of that is happening here. We'll get into some of the specifics of all the cool things that happen in this building, but all engineers will spend some time in Ford during their career at Northwestern. You cannot escape design. It's kind of a key fundamental tenet to what we do as engineers at this university. So if you look down below me, you'll see the Ford prototyping shop. When I gave my tour, my first tour at Northwestern, when I was receiving a tour for the first time when I was first at Northwestern, I thought this was the coolest thing. I looked down and I saw a bunch of students just like this, working on all sorts of different projects. And I thought to myself that I wanted to be in their footsteps doing just that. To give you a little bit of a tour of the layout, this main area here is called the main prototyping area. Right now it's set up in kind of a horseshoe of tables with a bunch of stools. These students are undergoing what's called the house training, which is just a basic introduction to all things shop. What that does is it enables you to have access to this space 24/7 with card access. As long as you have another buddy with you to scan into the building, you can be in this kind of general area, use any of the hand tools you want, build or make anything. One of my roommates freshman year decided that, he was getting a little tired, but it was 11 p.m. and he didn't have a place to store his towel. And so he decided, you know what, let's go to Ford. We're going to go down there. We're going to make a coat hook. We're going to take it back and we're going to glue it to our wall, which they probably shouldn't have done. But he built a beautiful coat hook and he had a place to hang his towel. To give you kind of more of an overview of not just this general area, here's where all of the just making and crafting and general stuff will happen. If there's any idea you want to kind of actualize, it'll probably happen down here. Over to the right, you're going to find all of the main woodworking tools. So table saws and panel saws, a big router. In the back, you'll see a lot of the metalworking equipment, so mills and lathes. Those are really cool pieces of equipment for creating anything out of aluminum or steel or anything that you really can't work with by hand because it's just too hard. And then in the area that you cannot see from here, kind of out behind off to the left, you'll find all of the really fancy machines, the CNC mills, the laser cutters, the water jets. As part of your DTC class that all Northwestern freshman engineers take, Design Thinking and Communication, you have no choice but to end up in the shop. DTC is a class that's set up in a project-based structure. So you're given a project, you're given a team of 4 other engineers. They come from all different backgrounds, so you're not guaranteed to be with like-minded people, which is really cool. And this project will come from a local community partner, so someone in the Northwestern community, in Evanston, in Chicago, and they'll come to Northwestern, they'll say, hey, this is something we need solved. Let's put these teams of engineers on it and see what they can do. It's a really great experience because it gets everybody designing right away. It's a really great way to find out if engineering is actually for you. At a lot of other schools I found, it can be difficult to know, am I actually enjoying engineering? Because you have to get through all of these prerequisites of math and science and design before you can actually begin doing the engineering work. But Northwestern throws you into the deep end, and with DTC, puts you into the shop. You have to start building right away, which I think is really awesome. To share what I did on my 2 DTC projects, because you'll take it twice, my freshman fall, I did a project in which we worked for the Shirley Ryan Ability Lab, which is the largest rehabilitation hospital in Chicago. We had a patient named Julia, who is a below-the-knee amputee, and she was really having a hard time climbing stairs. She was kind of forced to use her tricep strength to push herself up and over each individual step on her back, sort of like doing a tricep dip, and it caused a lot of exertion for her. And so over the course of 10 weeks, what we ended up doing is designing a foldable wooden ramp. It had 2 leaves that held down with magnets and 2 handles in which to carry it. And every time she wanted to climb the stairs, she would unfold one of the leaves. It would create a kind of triangular ramp for her, and then she could scoot laterally up the stairs. And by working her way up kind of zigzag pattern, like chutes and ladders, she was able to climb the stairs. It took her a little bit longer, but it vastly reduced her effort. And so it was a really good solution for her, and she really liked it. For my second project, it was completely different, actually. It wasn't even a real kind of mechanical engineering project. It was more of an industrial engineering project. We worked with a hardware store kind of out by O'Hare, and it was recently purchased by a Kellogg alum, and he's really having a really hard time with customer attention. So he wanted a team of engineers to use design thinking, which is kind of the skills that you build through DTC, to see what we could come up with, if there were any cool ideas that we could spin together to get more customers in the door, to keep his old customers and also bring in new ones. What we ended up settling on was a year-long plan of different event-based marketing, so events that he could host to kind of excite the community and bring people in and create Miller Industrial as a home of builders and makers and not just a place where you go to pick up drywall screws. Over my left shoulder, you'll see the Corner Makery. The Corner Makery is a really cool spot. It houses a bunch of 3D printers as well as these machines called carving machines. These 3D printers are completely free to use. Any Northwestern engineer can just kind of come up after a 20-minute, maybe even less introduction. It gets you started, you learn how to use the software, and you can start making anything you want. It's really meant for rapid prototyping, so a lot of your DTC projects will involve creating models and then printing them. It really depends on what the project is, but if there's kind of anything that you want for room decor or to solve a problem or for any of your engineering clubs, it can all be printed here entirely for free. The carving machines are just a miniaturized version of the wood router that you saw downstairs. It's tiny, so it's not very dangerous, but it's entirely programmable, and so you can give it a little file, and if you want to make a tiny little keychain that says Mom on it for Mother's Day or something like that, the carving machine can do it. It's a really cool piece of technology. I'll now show you what a DTC classroom looks like. As I already mentioned, you're being a team of 4 students, so 3 other students besides yourself. And the really cool thing about that structure is that there are only 4 teams per class. So the class size is really small. It gives you a really good chance to engage with your professors, to get real design advice from professors who come from industry, who work at the school. You'll be paired up with 1 engineering professor and 1 English professor. So a big portion of DTC is actually building your technical writing abilities. So you'll have a big report due at the end where you compile all of your drawings and everything you've written, all of your interviews. And so your professors kind of team up to do the best they can at teaching such an interesting course. If you look around you, it's very small. There's 4 tables because there will be 4 teams of 4. And during a typical DTC class, your professors will be up here and they'll spend some of the time teaching you all the important things you need to know to be a good designer. You'll go over sketching, you'll talk about design ethics, how to conduct a user interview. But usually that's only about half the class, and the rest of the hour and 20 minutes is entirely yours to just work on your project. If that means going downstairs into the shop to actually prototype or build something, if it means spending extra time writing your report, kind of the world is your oyster, which is what makes DTC really cool in my opinion. A couple other really cool things about the Ford building. It's also home to the Siegel Design Institute, so that's what kind of all of the design work that we've been talking about, it's all housed under Siegel. And Siegel offers a design certificate. So for any students, not just engineers, they can kind of concentrate in and take 7 classes in the pursuit of getting extra design rigor. That could be in interdisciplinary product design, it could be in kind of community-based service work, but regardless of what you're doing, the design certificate is a really great opportunity to get in extra design rigor if that's something you want to do, if you think it would add to your Northwestern experience in some way. Outside of the design certificate, Ford also houses the Farley Center for Entrepreneurship. So they offer an entrepreneurship minor, and it's the best place to study entrepreneurship. If you're interested in kind of the science of entrepreneurship, what it means to be an entrepreneur, Farley is the place to learn about it. In just a little bit, we're going to be at the Garage, which is the best place to practice entrepreneurship, and we'll talk a lot more about student entrepreneurs at Northwestern once we get over there. One last thing, Northwestern actually has a separate career advising office for its engineers. So there's Northwestern Career Advancement, NCA, but there's also Engineering Career Development, ECD, and ECD is also housed in this building. They're experts on everything an engineer needs to know to succeed kind of post-grad, finding internships, like working on your resume, all of that stuff they're really good at. They host tech-specific career fairs, so they're a really valuable department. And there's also through whom you can get a co-op. So co-ops are a program offered to Northwestern engineers where you can actually take a quarter off. You maintain your full-time student status, so you'll get 4 kind of fake credits while you're here. So that means things like keeping your health care and being able to access the gym and all of those wonderful things about Northwestern. But it allows you to spend like 6 months at a certain company. So when you do an internship over the summer, you can make some serious progress and you can add value to a company. But if you're doing 6 months, if you attach your summer quarter to say your spring quarter and make it 6 months there, or summer and fall, like by the end of your experience, you'll really be operating almost at the level of like a junior engineer. You'll be performing really sophisticated tasks at whatever company it is you've decided to settle at. So it's a really valuable experience to a lot of students. And it nearly almost results in a return offer as well, because if a company is willing to invest that much time into you, you can be pretty sure that they're interested in keeping you for the long term. Welcome to the Northwestern Technical Institute. This building is affectionately known as Tech to almost every Northwestern student. You'll never hear anyone call it the Northwestern Technical Institute. It's kind of like if my mom decided to call me Sawyer Cole Madison. I would know something was up. This building is home to all of our engineering departments, as well as the departments of chemistry, biology, and physics. So if you're doing something STEMmy at Northwestern, it's probably happening in Tech. Tech has 6 different floors, so going from the sub-basement, which is terrifying down there, lots of really fancy lasers and stuff, all the way up to the 4th floor. And it's divided into like 11 different wings. And each of these wings is going to house one of the engineering departments. So for example, my home wing in the mechanical engineering department is the B wing. So in kind of any of this segment of Tech right here, you'll find mechanical engineering faculty offices, you'll find conference rooms, you'll find labs, and you'll find classrooms. So I think it's really cool that it's all in one building because it fosters a really cool culture of cross-collaboration between departments. You'll find an applied mathematician having lunch right next to a chemical engineer, which I think is really cool and speaks to the interdisciplinary culture of Northwestern engineering. All right, so on one of these campus tours, we always try to bring you guys into a tech classroom to kind of see what the typical classroom size is. I actually had an applied math class in here, so I can actually speak to the fact that this is a fairly typical engineering classroom that you'll see. If you look around you, you'll find that there's not that many seats in here. I think this classroom holds 30 at most, and that's actually true for the majority of Northwestern classes. Over 70% of classes taught here, and that includes the engineering department, are going to have less than 20 students. 95% have less than 100 students. So it's very rare at Northwestern that you're going to end up in a class that has kind of a giant full lecture hall. With that being said, as an incoming engineer, you are going to be privy to some of the larger classes that we do have on campus. Engineering Analysis 1, for example, is Applied Linear Algebra for Engineers, and that's going to be the biggest class that you take. It'll have about 200 of your peers because all incoming engineers have to take linear algebra, and there are only 2 sections which is taught. So that is going to be in the big auditorium. But as you progress further into your degree, your classes are going to get smaller and smaller, especially as you get more and more specific into what you want to do with your specific sector of engineering. Right now, my mechanical engineering classes are sort of mid-sized. I'm a junior. I'm kind of cranking through my typical mechanical engineering requirements, my fluid dynamics, thermodynamics, design of mechanical elements. But pretty soon I'm going to start working on my concentration electives, and those will be specific to manufacturing, because that's kind of what I want to do long term. And those manufacturing classes, because there's less students interested in that, then we're going to see more of those class sizes of 10 or 20 or 30. And so that's really nice because it gives you a really great opportunity to meet your peers kind of in your engineering discipline, but also outside of it. In this applied math class that I took, it was the applied math of protein dynamics and protein folding. It was something that nobody had any experience with in the class. I was with other mechanical engineers, there was an electrical engineer, there was a couple of applied math people, but applied math people who weren't interested in proteins. But we all took it because we thought it sounded cool and we really loved our professor as well. To introduce you a little bit deeper into what the first year engineering curriculum looks like at Northwestern, we believe in an engineering first mentality. So what that means is that no matter what you end up studying, Northwestern wants to make sure that you have a broad base of engineering knowledge to kind of build a foundation to all of your further studies. What that means is that all Northwestern engineers take part in the engineering analysis sequence. So it's 4 classes that you'll take during your freshman and the beginning part of your sophomore years. Those are applied linear algebra, like I said. It'll be static and dynamic physics, and then it's differential equations. So that's your EA sequence. Outside of EA, we have DTC, which we already talked about, design, thinking, and communication, which is that project-based class. And then a lot of engineers will have to take chemistry. So if you're a biomedical engineer or a mechanical engineer, or a chemical engineer, obviously, you'll have to, or material science and engineering engineer, you'll end up taking chemistry. And then everybody also has to take your math sequence to get through calculus. The specific requirements are going to vary a little bit by department. For example, computer science students don't have to take differential equations, but the majority of your engineers will all be taking the same sorts of classes their freshman year. This is really nice because it provides a lot of flexibility in choosing a major. I like to say that Northwestern is the perfect place to study engineering if you want to be an engineer, but you don't know what an engineer is, or you don't know what kind of engineering you want to do. I came to Northwestern applied as a mechanical engineer. I had kind of a vague idea that it's what I wanted to do because it's very broad and applies to a lot of industries, but I really wasn't sure at all. I was kind of on the edge of considering chemical engineering. I was leaning towards electrical a little bit. Material science sounded really cool to me, although I didn't really know what it was. And the structure of Northwestern's first year of engineering meant that I don't even declare my major until the end of my second quarter here. So I'll spend almost a full 6 months studying at Northwestern before you ever have to choose a major. And even then, it's not too late to change. I have two friends who just graduated. One of them was a biomedical engineer his entire freshman year and his entire sophomore year. He got to the end of his sophomore year, so in the spring, and he decided, you know what? I love being an engineer, but biomedical engineering is just not for me. And so he decided to make the switch to chemical engineering. And when he did that, he was maybe a little worried in the beginning that he would be behind his peers, but it turns out he graduated last quarter. He graduated on time with a master's degree and is now pursuing a PhD at MIT. So he was not too far behind to catch up. Another friend did something similar. He made it all the way through his sophomore year studying civil engineering before he decided, you know what, I need to change. Let me be a mechanical engineer. And right now he's working at an architecture firm doing mechanical engineering stuff. So the kind of the HVAC side of architectural design, so combining those two majors a little bit. But he decided civil wasn't for him, and that was okay because the structure of Northwestern allows you to be a little bit more indecisive. Overall, the school has a mentality of whole brain engineering. Neuroscientists have long since disproven this theory, but there's this idea that the right brain is the side of your brain that's responsible for creativity and arts and leadership and communication, whereas the left brain is much more analytical and computational and capable of solving problems. Northwestern believes, and the McCormick School of Engineering believes, that the best engineers can unite those ideals and be a whole brain engineer. So you use both the left sides and the right sides. You'll see even in that first year curriculum, Northwestern's really trying to bring in both sides of the brain. When you work through your engineering analysis sequence, that's heavy left brain stuff. Same with calculus. But when you're doing your DTC projects, you'll really be pulling in sort of that more creative side of things. Another way that Northwestern tries to get you to engage that left brain is with the McCormick theme. The McCormick theme is a set of 7 classes that you'll take in the liberal arts and the social sciences. We require that all our engineers take these 7 classes because a broad base of liberal arts experiences is kind of a valuable college experience for everybody to have. I think I speak for all engineers when I say I'd much rather talk to an engineer who has studied things that aren't just their engineering discipline. They're a little bit easier to talk to. They have other worldly experiences. And it gives you a lot of flexibility. I personally chose Northwestern because of the 48 classes that I'll take, or 48 credits, 47 classes, about a quarter of them I could choose to not be engineering if I didn't want them to. That's your 7 theme requirements and also your 5 unrestricted requirements. I dove into my passion for learning languages. When I first got here as a freshman, I decided to take a Spanish class because I didn't want to lose the Spanish that I had built up over the years in high school. And after my first quarter, I loved it. I wanted to keep going to Spanish, but I realized I had run out of language and culture classes because I just got into the level where the only option forward is Spanish literature, and I really didn't want to do Spanish literature. So I made the switch, and I decided to start taking Portuguese classes instead. I've now taken 2 Portuguese classes. They are both really cool, and I'm interested in kind of continuing on with the department. But that's something that's uniquely enabled by the McCormick theme, and it's like flexibility. If you want to do something like study abroad or add a liberal arts major or a minor or take a certificate program, the quarter system and the flexibility that it builds into your schedule kind of uniquely allows that to happen. All right, welcome to the Mudd Engineering Library. Library here is a little bit of a misnomer. Unlike main library, which houses the majority of our 10 million volumes of print collection, Mudd only has a handful of bookshelves off to my right. Mostly the space was built in 2017 as a spot to build engineering community and to give students extra study spaces to work. So this library is open 24/7, meaning it always provides students with a spot that they can come to work on whatever homework or assignments that they have. Behind me, you'll see some monitors and keyboards if you're ever wanting a break from your tiny little laptop screen, you want a bigger space to spread out. There's a silent study lounge, which is kind of your typical large tables with students working kind of quietly. There's also lots of individual reservable breakout rooms. So if you're in a 4-person project, like your DTC project with your team of 4, you could all reserve a room in Mudd, and you could kind of while away the afternoon working in there. There's also larger conference rooms. There's smaller rooms as well, places where you can take something like an interview or a phone screen. Some other really cool spots that Mudd has is there's a Maker Lab. This one is a little bit different from the one in Ford. So it's not, you don't print yourself, but you can send files to be printed by some experts that kind of do this full time in Mudd. It allows you to do some really cool things that you can't do on the Ford printers. For example, if you want to print with carbon infill, if you want to make carbon fiber 3D prints, which adds a lot of strength while reducing your weight, you can do that here, which is super cool. The 3rd floor is really home to the computer science department, and then the 4th floor above us is going to be a material science and engineering space. But Mud Library on this floor is where you'll see your students most of the time, and it really is just a study spot. One thing the architect decided to do when they were building Mud here about 10 years ago was they decided to install showers into the middle of the engineering library. I think what must have happened is they read the project description, they saw Mud Engineering Library, they pictured what an engineer typically smells like, and they thought, we need to put showers in this building. While it is a little bit strange to take a shower in the Mud Library, I do think that it's a rite of passage as a Northwestern engineer. I've taken a mud shower, a couple of my friends have taken mud showers, and I think it's just something you have to do. Surprisingly, the shower is really nice. The water pressure gets up pretty high, it's nice and warm, and it's a much bigger shower than I was used to in my typical dorm shower. You can really spread out a little bit. So you can deal with the awkwardness of taking a bathrobe and a towel and your shower caddy with shampoo and conditioner into the library with you. I think it's worth it to take a mud shower. Welcome to the garage. The garage is the hub for all things student entrepreneurship. During our tour of Ford, you might remember the Farley Center, which is the best place to study entrepreneurship if you want to get the entrepreneurship minor. However, by far, the best place on campus to practice entrepreneurship is here in the garage. It's an incubator space and a community full of student entrepreneurs who all have ideals of starting their own business and kind of building it from the ground up. The garage has all sorts of different programs and ways to get started. The first is Tinker. As a member of the Tinker program, you'll be introduced to all the different startups that exist on campus. You'll do startup matchmaking, where you get to see what all of these different student companies are doing, and you can join one and start entrepreneurshipping alongside them. As a tinkerer, you get access to a lot of the spaces here, but you won't be a full resident until you actually kind of establish yourself in this community. Other specific programs include Propel, which is for women who are interested in entrepreneurship, so female students who are kind of a typically underrepresented group among entrepreneurs. And there's also Luminate, which is for FIGLY, or first generation or low income students, kind of aimed at getting those communities interested and started with entrepreneurship. The garage is an amazing place because it gives you a soft landing. What makes an entrepreneur an entrepreneur is the amount of risk that they inherently take on as they start a business. With the garage, however, you get access to a large pool of funding, which means that you're not always spending your own money. And the best kind of money to spend is always other people's money. Through programs like Jumpstart and VentureCat, you have the opportunity to win large grants of non-dilutive funding, which can be used entirely towards the pursuits of whatever your business is doing. The grand prize every year is as big as $100,000, so that's a lot of capital with which to build your business from the ground up. The garage is an entirely extracurricular space. That means you'll never receive class credit for anything you do here in the garage. That's actually an advantage because it means that the students who are here in the garage working on their projects are doing so entirely because it's something they're passionate about, not because they're looking to get a grade or earn something for a project. Well, this space behind me, behind these garage doors, may look like a classroom. It's actually a space reservable for student organizations, especially if you have one centered around entrepreneurship or building a business or anything like that. They love to have speakers come in and use this space to present. You'll see the cafe, which is kind of this space all around us here. It's a spot that's open to all students. It's kind of a secret study spot, and I definitely recommend it to kind of anyone. It doesn't matter if you're a part of a startup or not. It gives you access to tea and coffee for free. There's the fanciest water machine I've ever seen called a Bevy, which is a startup out of Boston. You'll also see just a lot of individual booths where you can study with a friend, or these kind of solo spots here, which are sound resistant, not fully soundproof, but it's still a great place to take, say, an interview or a Zoom call. As a resident in the garage or a member of the residency program, you'll get access to these two spaces here. Off to my right, you'll see the media and design studio. So this is a place for recording any sort of audio-visual. If you want to take promotional photographs or video of your product, if your startup involves making a physical product, you can do that here. It's also home to AR and VR goggles. If you want to play around with those, that's something that you have access to as a garage resident. Over my right shoulder, you'll see another prototyping lab. Unlike the Ford lab, which is open to kind of all students, all engineering students, and anyone who gains access through shop training, this one is exclusive to garage residents and tinkerers. So as a member of the garage community, you can use this space to work on whatever physical prototype your garage startup requires. The prototyping lab behind me is home to all sorts of cool machines like 3D printers, basic woodworking tools, and all sorts of other prototyping and crafting equipment. It's not a space where you'll be able to do scaled manufacturing, but it's a really good place for prototyping and throwing together mock-ups if your startup requires that you have such a physical product. One of the coolest startups that's ever come out of the garage is this right here called the Steady Scrib. What it is a special pen and board system for patients of Parkinson's. As someone with Parkinson's, it's very common to have a persistent tremor, and that makes it really hard to write on paper. This system combines a thick ergonomic grip in the pen with a strong magnet and a metal board over the paper, which is held down with magnets. And so what it means is that when your pen tip comes close to the paper, it's kind of glued in place, and it means that whatever you're writing, your pen's not going to come loose. And it allows patients with Parkinson's to be able to handwrite letters, for example, which is something that they may have lost access to a long time ago due to their tremors. This steady scrib, this invention here, was prototyped entirely in the garage's prototyping lab, which makes it sort of one of a kind. It's really cool, and it shows that you don't need to have any prior engineering knowledge. You don't need to be kind of engaged in the Ford community to be able to build stuff and create something if you have a good enough idea for your business. Behind me, you'll see a lot of the large cardboard checks for awards that students have won through the garage. This is the funding that they have access to build their startups. The prizes start small, as low as $1,000, which is definitely not nothing. It can go a long way towards scaling your business, all the way up to the $100,000 grand prize. Last year, it was won by TurboLearn AI, which is an AI startup from a current junior at Northwestern. And that money was really put into advertising. I'll see ads on Instagram even now of TurboLearn. It's really starting to catch off and gain mainstream use, which is super cool. These Polaroids to my left are of a lot of the students who are currently engaged in the garage. This isn't all of them because they haven't all gotten their photos taken yet, but these are a good sampling of the residents. There's over 200 students currently doing something in the garage at any given time, which is a pretty good chunk of the Northwestern population, and it's a very strong entrepreneurial community. So if that's something that you've ever wanted to try or start doing, it's a good place to do it. Behind me is the beautiful Kellogg School of Management. The Kellogg School offers an executive MBA program, but unfortunately does not offer any undergraduate classes. That means that yes, Northwestern does not have an undergraduate business major. While this is a little bit unfortunate, it actually comes directly from both schools communicating with each other. When Kellogg looks for an MBA applicant, they're looking for someone with a broad base of liberal arts education. They want someone who came from engineering but now wants to study business, who studied art history but now they're interested in applying it towards business. They're not looking for someone who studied the business of business, which is what, in their opinion, an undergraduate business degree does for you. So while you cannot study business directly in the Kellogg School, they do offer a couple of programs specifically for undergraduate students. These are the Kellogg certificate programs. There are two of them, one in financial economics and one in managerial analytics. Both of them allow you to take 4 classes kind of at that master's MBA level with Kellogg faculty, sort of in the pursuit of studying more of those finance or business topics that you're interested in. If that's not up your alley, but you're still interested in studying business some other way, there's tons of ways to do it at Northwestern. You could engage in any one of the kind of business adjacent majors that we do offer. So economics is very popular, industrial engineering is very popular. There's also a business institutions minor offered through the Weinberg School. And in addition, we have a ton of student organizations kind of focused around all sorts of sectors of finance, from investment banking to consulting to accounting. So there's more than enough ways for students who want to pursue business after graduation to pursue business. It just can't be through an undergraduate business major. Welcome to the Research Quad. This is one of my favorite spots on campus. Even though the type of engineering and science that happens here is pretty different than the kind of mechanical engineering I do on a daily basis, it's still really cool to watch the scientists do their work. Right now, we're located inside Silverman Hall, which is the Center for Molecular Therapeutics and Diagnostics. I had to read it off the building behind me because I don't do this kind of science, unfortunately. However, looking behind me is an example of a synthetic biology lab. So there are people inside there doing synthetic biology. Couldn't really tell you exactly what that means, but it's really cool stuff. A lot of the best research that Northwestern pumps out is through labs exactly like this. We're here in the Research Quad because it gives me a really great opportunity to talk about undergraduate research on campus. Northwestern allots over $3.5 million annually solely for the purpose of allowing undergraduates to do research. This is divvied out in the form of grants. You can get $1,000 during any one academic quarter to pursue your research during the school year, or you can get $4,000 over the summer. Typically, this is seen as a living stipend, so it allows students to live on campus, just no matter where they're from, and allow them to kind of continue doing the research that they're interested in doing and spend a summer here at Northwestern doing it. Research can look like a lot of different things. You could be in a wet lab like this, titrating, or whatever synthetic biologists do, but you could also be at the Beaman School of Music. You could do audiology research. You could do research at the medical school, despite being an undergraduate student. There really are a ton of options for what you can do. One of my favorite programs Northwestern has for undergraduate researchers is called the UREP program, the Undergraduate Research Assistant Program. What this does is it allows students who have never done any sort of research before to dip their toes into the water and see what research is like. As an undergraduate research assistant, you're paired up with a faculty member who's someone who needs an extra set of hands in their lab or in whatever their research entails. You'll get paid a small amount of money to kind of be alongside them in the lab, working sort of a part-time job in the lab with them. And then at the end of your quarter with them, it's a really great jumping off point if you want to continue on with their lab. If you really like what they're doing, you can stay on and continue doing that. If you realize that this was a good introduction to research, but I actually want to check out this lab led by this professor, that can be a really great option too. To give a couple specific examples of research that my friends are doing, I have a mechanical engineering friend who is he's a mechanical engineer, but he found a passion for mat sci during the course of his studies. And so with the material science department, he's actually studying dental enamel. So apparently, I didn't know this, there's a lot of really interesting material science that goes on in your teeth. And so dentists actually have to take more material science classes than anyone else, except for, of course, material scientists. And so he's doing research in Cook Hall, which is connected to Mud Library. Another friend of mine is a chemical engineer, but he's doing more synthetic biology research in Silverman. He's building these gold particles that allow you to or allow diagnostic tools to pop up when you go through an MRI. These gold particles will kind of flash and allow you to see exactly what's going on inside the human body. It's a joint venture with the medical school, which is really cool. Norris University Center behind me, the de facto home of student organizations and activities, I'll talk about some engineering-specific clubs on campus. There's a ton, over a dozen, but to give you some specific examples, we have 3 different car teams. So those are really heavy on the design and manufacturing for kind of mechanical engineers and electrical engineers. On Baja, you'll build an off-roader, so a car that can sustain kind of giant bumps and drive through the desert. The Formula team is focused on building the fastest machine possible, just generating as much torque as possible straight into the ground to get up to speeds of 60 miles an hour and above. And I'm actually on the solar car team. So on the solar team, we're really focused on efficiency and see how much energy we can harness from the sun to turn it directly into power, allowing us to drive an endurance race. So a 24-hour race around the track powered entirely by the sun. For some non-car organizations, we have NU Stars, which is the aerospace and rocketry team. They do space tech competitions where they work for NASA to come up with kind of big ideas, things that you might see on, say, a Mars rover. They also do student launches of rockets that go 10,000 feet up into the air. For some other organizations, there's Engineers for a Sustainable World. They're working on a project right now called Smart Tree, which is to allow Wi-Fi connectivity kind of around the lake. So no matter where you are on campus, you'll maintain connection to our campus Wi-Fi. And also, I think they're trying to integrate like power outlets into these trees as well. A lot of the engineering departments will also have an integrated honor society. This is a great place for networking, to meet other engineers who are studying the same thing as you. Sometimes they'll cater free food or bring a fireside chat, so someone from industry to come in and talk about what it means to be a civil engineer in the real world. So no matter what it is you're studying, what engineering discipline, there's almost certainly a club that's made for you. Thank you so much for joining me today on this engineering and design tour. We'll wrap things up very quickly, but before we do, I wanted to give my why Northwestern. In the tour guide office, we always end our tours in the exact same way with a why Northwestern, kind of to explain any last anecdotal evidence as to why we chose Northwestern and why we continue to choose Northwestern every day. With Deering Library behind me, I'll explain that I chose Northwestern because of how uniquely well-rounded an institution it is. As you've probably gotten a feel for throughout this engineering tour, Northwestern is an excellent engineering school, top ranked. However, there's a ton of opportunities to do things that aren't just engineering. The McCormick theme and your unrestricted classes allow you to take classes and study things that aren't just your engineering major. Northwestern's a school that has excellent research and excellent academics, but there's also a vibrant culture of student organizations. We have Division I sports to watch. We have access to the city of Chicago. Northwestern just had everything going for it for me. And that flexibility and the quarter system made it a wonderful place to start my education. As I also mentioned, it's a place that you don't have to know what you're doing before you start. I wasn't guaranteed that I was going to stay a mechanical engineer, and this was the perfect place for me to figure out that I actually do want to be a mechanical engineer. But if I didn't want to be, I could have switched very easily. The reason I continue to stay at Northwestern, why I still love it to this day, really boils down to the academic culture. Northwestern students are fairly driven people, I will not lie. And the academics here can be rigorous at times. It's an engineering school. It's not always a breeze. I had a very hard time with thermodynamics, to give you a specific example. However, Northwestern students, I find, are always collaborating. Students are there to support each other. We're working on homeworks together. A lot of your classes will be focused on group projects. So there's this real culture of working together and trying to build each other up. You'll never find students toxically competing to see who can be at the top of the class. It's always, how can we help each other to be the best versions of ourselves? And I really love that. because it's a lot easier to handle rigor when you're not dealing with toxic competition on top of it all. Once again, thank you so much for joining me on this tour today. I hope you had a wonderful time.